In this video, we'll learn how to create and save lists, as well as how to download end-of-day foreign exchange rate data from the PalomarData.com database. So let's open the Ticker Downloader application to get started. To start downloading currencies under the File menu, we need to get into the Currencies section, so let's do that. Now when we open this window, we'll have access to more than 300 different currency pairs coming from more than 16 different countries and their central banks. So all the data that you'll see here and download from here is stored on PalomarData.com, and all the data is traceable and aggregated back to central banks across more than a dozen different countries. So the first thing that we need to do is to build and create a list of currency pairs we're interested in looking at. So let's do that. The US dollar is fairly common and many of us will be interested in looking at that. So let's scroll down to the list. Let's select US dollar. Let's select the Australian dollar versus the New Zealand dollar. And maybe we want to look at another currency as well. Let's look at the Brazilian real and compare that to the euro. And let's hit the add button again. So from what you can see, when we hit the add button, we add these currency pairs to our list below. This here is US dollar per 1 Australian dollar. That's the unit of measure for that particular currency pair. If you want to invert it and instead look at the Australian dollar on a basis of every 1 US dollar, you just have to select the reciprocal button here and enable that checkbox. This box also tells you how far back in time the data is available for. So for the US dollar Australian dollar currency pair, it goes back as far as 1971 and it's current through February 3rd of 2015, or today's current date. And again, all of this data comes from the central banks for various countries. And that is also documented here in this text box that I'm scrolling through. And again, as you scroll through this text box to choose your currency pairs, you're seeing that that data source is changing. So you have full traceability in terms of where this data is coming from. Again, this is end of day data. It's not continuous, and it also doesn't have open, high, low, and close values either. It's simply aggregated from the central banks as they collect their average buy and sell prices throughout the day. And again, the currency market is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week market. Open, high, low, and close, if you're using that information, is going to be relative to whatever standards your data source is referencing. So make sure you know what those are. But again, for this data, it's simply end-of-day aggregated data from the various central banks. So now we have a list of 3 symbols. We're going to look at these 3 symbols every day, so why don't we save the list? So let's hit the Save List button. And we can call that list My Currency List. And let's save it to our Currencies folder. Again, if I open the Currencies folder, you'll see that list right here. Now let's log out of the application and get back into it, and I'll show you how to import that list as well. Again, we'll go over to our Currencies section. And instead of having to recreate those selections every day or memorize what they were you were looking at, just hit the Open List button. And from there, we can look under Currencies, and we can select our list and open it, and everything is repopulated again. So that's an easy time-saving way that you can use to continually look at your information without having to recreate your list every time. Now we can also, for instance, look at the reciprocal of this. Again, if we really want to look at the Australian dollar on a basis of every 1 US dollar, we simply have to take the reciprocal. And we can, again, save the list to do that, to make sure that setting is saved for next time. So that's how we add symbols, or I should say how we add currency pairs to our list. And like when we downloaded stock data, there are a few different ways we can download currency data too. So let's look at current data, and we'll include the date. If we try to download that, and let's again put it into our currencies folder, and we'll give it a file name called My Currencies. When we perform that download, which again came right from PalomarData.com databases, we can open up that CSV file into Excel, and now we have our currency pairs for February 3rd, which is today's current date. So that's an easy way to get your currency pairs into a CSV or text file, and an easy way to open it in Excel. Why don't we also look at another way to download the data? Let's look at historical data, and let's go back in time as far as we can, and our default right now is 1971. And let's take it through yesterday, or February 2nd. Now again, we have 1971 for this currency pair, 1971 for the middle one, and we have the year 2000 for this one. So as we select 1971, it's going to go back as far in time as it possibly can and take as much data as is available. Obviously, for our bottom currency pair, the Brazilian real against the European euro, it's only going to be able to find data back to the year 2000. Let's try to download everything. Again, we can download everything in CSV format, and we'll give that a try. Again, let's just save it to the currencies folder. And it's reaching out to the PalomarData.com database fairly quickly. And now we've created 3 new files, 1, 2, and 3. 3 new CSV files, sorted by date and sorting by what we call the close price, or basically the end of day aggregated value from its own central bank source. So let's exit out of there. Let's also delete some of these files now that we don't need them. And go back to our application. Again, keep in mind that we also had the ability to choose how we wanted that date to be formatted in those files we just looked at. We each had chosen latest to oldest, but we could have also chosen oldest to latest. It all depends on how you prefer to see the data and how you prefer to use it. So again, with the CSV output, we saw our separate files. If we choose Excel, we're going to see a little bit different output. And let's save it back into that folder. Download is complete. And instead of having 3 different CSV files, we now have 1 Excel file. But it's 1 Excel file with the 3 separate tabs, 1 for each of the currency pairs. And you can see what it is. So that's the difference between CSV and Excel outputting formats. Again, let's delete that file. Now let's go back to our application, and let's look at some of the Metastock outputs that are available. There's version 11 and 12, which most people are probably not using anymore, but we provide some backwards capability to still output in that format. So let's take a look at that. And again, let's download the data, and we'll put it into the Metastock 1112 folder. And again, we'll reach out to the PalomarData.com database and go through the process of downloading the data, and it will also go through the process of processing it. Now, since we went so far back in time to 1971, there's more than 30 years of data that will have to be converted to Metastock format, and it'll take a few minutes. So I'll stop the video here and restart it up in just a couple minutes when it's close to being completed. So the download process is just about done, and in a few seconds we'll move on to see where that data got exported to. Okay, So let's look at our currencies folder, and then under Metastock 1112 we have our 3 currencies, and this is the typical local data format for Metastock 11 and 12. And if you're still using that version of Metastock, you should be familiar with how to import those data into the application. Now let's prepare for a download in Metastock 13 format, which by the way will go a lot quicker. So let's try that. Again, we just select Metastock 13. We'll download to our Metastock 13 folder and just give this a few seconds to execute. Much quicker under Metastock 13 format. And again, we can look in the folder and you will see the currency pairs in the text file names themselves. And again, these are just text files. By default, they're opening up here in Excel, but it's in the local data format for Metastock 13. So let's try to open that up in Metastock. When we get into Metastock, we'll have to select the Tools menu, and then from there, Custom List Manager. And this is where we're going to get our local data saved into. So let's select New Local Instruments. We'll call this instrument My Currencies. We'll have to browse for the data. And it's in the Metastock 13 folder. There's our 3 currency pairs. We just select them all, hit Add, and then we save that list. And you see it appears here right at the top. I've highlighted it in blue. So now we have the list saved. The next thing we have to do is go to the File menu, select Open Power Console, and here at the top is our 3 currencies. Let's select all of them to take a look, and then let's hit the Next button. We can keep these defaults as they are, so let's hit Open Chart. And from here we'll have the currencies plotted. Again, there's no volume in the lower pane because there is no volume recorded for any data source really for the 24/7 currency market. But you do have the data shown here as dots. That data can be, its properties can be changed, and we can just make this as a simple line chart, which helps to visualize it a little bit. But there's the data, and again you can scroll back in time as far as you want to see it. And as it says here up in the title, this is US dollars per every 1 New Zealand dollar. And that's your chart. Again, there's no bar chart or open, high, low, close on these data because the PalomarData.com database is based off of central banks as the data source, and they don't supply intraday multi-time point data. They simply aggregate daily trades throughout the day and give an average price, which is also very useful. So we can exit out of Metastock and go back to the ticker downloader. And that basically covers the way we can create lists, save lists, and export data for currency pairs under the ticker downloader application. If you missed the first video, you can also download stock symbol data as well, and that's shown in a separate video. So I hope you enjoyed watching this one, and thanks for watching.